People, deluded, I'm back again. I can't lie, I'm happy the international break is over. I'm not going to sit here and say I don't enjoy football. Of course I do. Any sort of football, any league, at any level, domestically or internationally. Why don't we want to watch football? But that being said, I'm pretty sure you can forgive every football fan of getting a bit annoyed when the international break comes along, especially as the Premier League's just returned. I feel there's a couple of 1-2 talking points that we can discuss, people. Let's start with Phil Foden. Now, when I look at Phil Foden and better yet Gareth Southgate's comments, I don't agree with Phil Foden's inability to play midfield at international level. I think the man is a player that, I think the Fodens, the Trents, the Sakas, the Bellinghams, Declan Rice, Arsenal propaganda, and plenty of other footballers. We've got Grealish, we've got some very exciting players and excitable players and players that are at the right sort of age in their career and that we could build something, I think this has been the most exciting time to be an England fan in my 28 years. I know Gareth Southgate gets a lot of criticism. I know there's criticism over his football, which we will discuss, and let me know your own thoughts in the comments. Obviously about the lack of winning things, but at the same time, in Gareth Southgate's defense, what do people expect England to do? Do we genuinely expect to win a Euros, in which he got to a final and has done all right in the World Cup? I don't agree with Southgate's conservative approach. I don't agree with some of the comments he makes about football, but I do think this has probably been the best I've seen England in my lifetime. I've seen Steven Gerrard, Lampard, Rios, or Campbell, Ashley Cole, whatever have you, not go on and do things. And I do like how Southgate conducts himself. I do like his togetherness. I do like the way he actually backs his players. And I do like the way how he speaks about players. Now, in relation to Phil Foden, I think the man can play midfield. I don't agree with these comments about Phil Foden cannot play central midfield. The man is an amazing footballer in the day and age of being multifunctional. He's a mercurial talent, can play cam, can play as an 8, can play out wide. That being said, in Gareth Southgate's defense, or not even to just defend him, going against my own logic, which again, I think Foden, the team needs to be built around people like that. As an international manager, and this is not to forgive Southgate for some of his questionable call-ups, questionable decisions, Harry Maguire off the bench, and all of these things. What I would say in Gareth Southgate's defense is he's got to prepare for a Euros. Logically, how much does he get to work with these players? Yes, Pep works with Foden, and that would be enough for me. But how much does he get to work with these players individually and collectively? He has less time than a domestic manager. The vast majority of Gareth Southgate's time is spent looking at players that are in the England squad or potentially others. He's probably had a week or just 10 days to work with them in the international break. Then they're back off to play for their countries, their clubs, wherever they're situated in. So he doesn't really, and it's not an excuse. It's not an excuse, but he just doesn't have time. So I can understand why he might not do things really. And when you do look at his comments in which he said about Gareth Southgate, in which he said about Foden, he said he doesn't play centrally for his club, so presumably there's a reason for that, which I don't think he's wrong. It could be because there's other players. It could be that Pep Guardiola prefers him out wide. You do look at Phil Foden. I do think currently he's at his best when he's playing them 1-2s against the run of play, when he's pulling into tight spaces, when he's running into open spaces, when he's playing with his head up. And, I think Phil Foden, his age, the stature of a team like City and the talent they have and his versatility goes against him. He's probably played out wide a lot more of the time, really. It takes me back to when Gareth Southgate questioned Jack Grealish defensively. Obviously, Pep didn't have anything to say. Grealish went and played for him, and Grealish has never been a numbers man in terms of goals and assists, but defensively he's improved the tenfold. Now Southgate's excuse doesn't really go for. What I would say, Phil Foden's at 23 years of age now, and you really don't know what he is. Like, I think he's a 10, I think he's an 8, and I think he can play out wide, but he's played all about the place under Pep Guardiola. So it's about time for Phil Foden to come into his own. And what I would say, no matter how talented a young player or a player you are, international football is a different level psychologically. Of course, I would want to see a midfield trio of Rice, Bellingham, Foden, and many other variations. But is Bellingham mature enough to play in the pivot for England at this moment in time? Let me know. I believe yes, but also believe no. Can him and Phil Foden operate together? Or, Declan Rice, Bellingham and Foden or something of that ilk? I believe yes, but I can understand the reluctance to not do that. I don't forgive Southgate for not experimenting with it, but I'm just saying I understand it. And when you look at it statistically, people, of the 223 games Phil Foden has played for Manchester City, 133 of those in the Premier League. And if you do care about the goals and assists, he's got 60 goals in all comps for City and 44 assists. In the Premier League, he's got 35 goals and 21 assists in his 133. Looking at what's available on transfer market in all the positions he's played, for that 23 appearances. He's played 27 times in the middle of the park. He's played left midfield 26 times, left winger 23 times, up front 16 times. And I don't agree with all this talk about Foden needs to play games. I mean, minutes are currency. He wants to play games. He could, he'd probably be even better in some aspects if he was at another club where he's playing week in, week out. But he's learning under Pep Guardiola. And when you look at Gundogan's gone, Kevin De Bruyne, these kind of players, Bernardo Silva, they're the guys for the present. Phil Foden's the future. And you will see him, in my opinion, take more responsibility in the middle of the park for England and Manchester City. But I can't lie, I don't think Southgate necessarily is wrong. I don't think he's right, but I don't think he's wrong because he doesn't play there under Pep at this moment in time for whatever reason. Once again, it could be because Pep doesn't think he's ready. Pep's got better options. Pep sees his versatility elsewhere. Again, can Phil Foden cope psychologically with dictating the tempo of the game? Because there is a lot of the time, as much as I like Foden, at times he does flatter to deceive. And when you're at Manchester City, you can afford to kind of, not hide's not the right word, because I don't think he hides, but you can afford to kind of goals. For England, you can't, and that goes for every player. It's like William Saliba. When he steps up for France, he's a good player, but you see the things you get away with in the Premier League, you might not necessarily get away with them at international level, and that goes for a lot of players. How many footballers have we seen make that jump? It's a very big jump, and more so than anything, it's psychological. Because yes, half of these England boys, if they've not played with each other, they've known each other, and good players can play with good players, and there's telepathic sort of reasoning and all those things for link-up play, but you're not training with these boys week in, week out. What Southgate is asking of you tactically is very different to what other people might be asking. So once again, I don't agree with Southgate's comments, but I don't necessarily think he's necessarily wrong, really. Again, for what it's worth, I think Southgate is far too conservative. I do think when you look at on paper, I do think this is probably not in terms of necessarily, ability, but I do think this is the best I've seen England. I don't think Southgate is the man to take these players to the next level, in a sense of, you've got Grealish, Saka, Trent, who's also struggled at times to get into the team, Foden, Maddison, many exciting players. And you can't really have them exciting players under a conservative manager. It's a bit like asking these great attackers to thrive to their highest optimum under Simeone, because Simeone's principles are not to do that, really. So yeah, for me, Phil Foden's best position is a number 10. I do think long term he's at 8, but I understand why he might play out wide. And there has been times he's not done the job for England, if I'm honest, like a lot of people. Again, was it not? It could have been a Euros where he was the poster boy going into it. He dyed his hair and everything, and it didn't really work out, really. But give the man time. I do think England need a manager who can get the best out of these exciting talents. They will show naivety on occasion, but Phil Foden is too wonderful of a footballer to be even having this conversation. And at 23 years of age, now it's time for Foden to kind of carry the mantelpiece in his own way for Manchester City, and definitely for the country, because there's not a whole leap of talent. And then, as much as I don't think Southgate is right or wrong, it doesn't really hold up where you'll play, Rice and Calvin Phillips as a pivot is nonsense, in my opinion. I get the reasons behind playing it, but it's nonsense. I think I saw a statistic that Calvin Phillips has played he's started 4 times for England recently and 4 times for Manchester City. So he's living the dream. But yeah, shout out Jude Bellingham. What a player he is, man. So yeah, it is what it is in that regards, folks. Moving away from these sort of stuff, I do kind of like Gareth Southgate's defense of Harry Maguire, and I do like Ramsdale and everyone else. Harry Maguire, it's got to the point where obviously for the people that are running the banter and having a bit of fun, it's cool, but it's not funny anymore. It's like when a man's really down on his luck, again, Arsenal fans are chanting for you to come on, and you're showing them why. Your own club fans don't really mess with you because for obvious reasons you're not doing the ability. I do think you're not showing your ability. I do think the England fans were fantastic with Harry Maguire, but yeah, you could, it's like a pantomime villain. We can't do anything right. And when you're really down on your luck, you're down on your luck. I think in Gareth Southgate, he trusts Harry Maguire. Harry Maguire probably plays a lot better for England than he does for Manchester United. He trusts him. He's one of his members of the team. End of the day, he wants to play him. He's trying to play him into confidence, but playing devil's advocate in that 3-1 victory against Scotland, could you argue that he was set up for failure? Because ultimately, it's another game where Harry Maguire own goal, Harry Maguire mistake, or Ramsdale was robbed of a clean sheet. I do think the media are a bit harsh, and I do think we need to be mindful of not just Harry Maguire's mental health, but Jadon Sancho, completely off topic, and many in general. I am starting to feel sorry for Harry Maguire because nothing is going right for you, for club or country, and it can't be nice for your family. Like, again, I know we've moved away from the Manchester United Arsenal game, but could you imagine if Harry Maguire was your brother, your nephew, your uncle, your son, whatever? Rival fans are cheering for you to come on, really and truly. I know at times Harry Maguire hasn't helped himself. I remember when he cupped his ears after scoring for England, but I do think he's being done dirty, and I do think we need to be a bit mindful of people's mental health. Like, I do feel sorry for the guy, if I'm honest. For what it's worth, Southgate said he's just come out and spoken to the media, which I think shows the resilience and character of him, which is true. He wears his heart on his sleeve. We're now in a situation where, because of people in our own country, the opposition think they can have fun with him. What's that about? I think they think they can have fun with him because they believe, he's not the modern defender and he can be got at. I do think, he gets caught flat-footed a lot. I do think he swipes at things a lot. I do think at times, he kind of, he loses the man he's meant to be marking, and somehow that's at a detriment to his teammates, where he kind of stitches up his teammates inadvertently. He's been an incredible player for England and one of the most successful teams we've had, critical for what we've been doing. We allow him to be open to that. It's a joke, an absolute joke. It makes me livid. Thankfully, he's got the support of the dressing room and the people behind him. I thought the England fans in the stadium tonight were absolutely brilliant. I have no problem with Scotland fans. They're having fun, but what stirs that up is people in our own country. Other players will think, is that what awaits us? Great credit to him that he's managed to show the composure with the ball, keep the ball, and put that moment behind him, which is true. But at the same time, Southgate's going to stick with Maguire. He'll be in the Euro squad because he trusts him. And for what it's worth, I do believe as any international manager is never going to, every international manager is going to rile up something within the media or the fan base. They're not going to call up everyone that should be called up. I don't think Southgate has to call up a bunch of players that he trusts, because then you find yourselves with the Calvin Phillipses, potentially Henderson, even though I get why they're called up, even though, one's not playing in Europe anymore, and next one don't really buy a game for City. And likewise, I don't agree with picking players just based on form. If you have a team based on players that are just in form, your best players might not necessarily get on the plane. If you pick players that you just believe in, and you trust and things like that, you can see why there's an issue. You need to have a balance. So for what it's worth, I don't think he's necessarily wrong, but I do think Maguire probably shouldn't have come on. I do think Maguire's strong mentally, and he's going to need to channel any sort of mental strength he has within him, really, because it's looking peak for him, if I'm completely honest with you. Away from that, people, I'm sure some of you have heard Paul Pogba faces a suspension for anti-doping after, taking testosterone. Apparently it's come out that he took a food supplement, and Paul Pogba really just can't buy any luck, really and truly, if I'm completely honest with you. He's been injured, he's just come back, and now, he's been provisionally suspended for an anti-doping offense. He tested positive for testosterone, which obviously is a hormone that increases athletes' endurance, in a random drugs test following Juventus versus Serie A on August the 20th, people. Apparently, they're waiting on another sort of sample, so we'll see resolution over that. Julian Nagelsmann is in talks to potentially become, and better yet, is the favourite to become the next German gaffer. And obviously, the Euros is in Germany. I'm sure Hansi Flick and the German national team didn't want it to go this way, but right now it hasn't really been working out for Germany. As you know, they've lost to Belgium, Poland, Colombia, and Japan since their World Cup exit. And, Germans, they're very efficient and effective. They don't just sit and wait for a while. You'd imagine there's probably a manager in the homeland for German football experts that are more privy to that information than I am. But you'd imagine Jurgen Klopp and Julian Nagelsmann would have been two names firmly up the list. Currently, I think Voller is the interim, really. Footy Leaks founder Rui Pinto has been given a suspended sentence over an attempt extortion. As you know, since he leaked a lot of things about football, it's been peak for him. But yeah, he's been given a suspended sentence. Antony is to delay his Manchester United return after obviously allegations following assault, and I know he's given an interview and things like that. First and foremost, my thoughts go with any alleged victims of domestic violence, and obviously in relation to this case, hopefully things come to light and there's resolution on that. I don't want to speculate. What I would say is I feel sorry for Manchester United fans, because as an Arsenal fan, definitely not to this scale, but we should be talking about what a team is or isn't doing on a football sort of thing, people. And it seems like with Manchester United, this player's having bust ups with Ten Hag, this one's that. Obviously, certain men have gone over to Spain on loan doing the mad thing. And now you've obviously got Anthony, really. So like I said, thoughts are with the victim and whatnot, people. And you don't want to hear anything like that. Apparently, Miami-based 777 partners are close to agreeing an Everton takeover. Completely off topic. I've just seen that on Sky Sports. I don't know how their ethics are. I don't know if they're the owners Everton fans wanted, but I'm sure that might be quote unquote music to Everton fans' ears, people, especially because we've got Everton on the weekend. We don't travel well to Goodison Park. Hopefully we're proved wrong in that regards, people. So yeah, that's all there is to really discuss at this moment. Smash the like button. Let me know your thoughts, people, via commenting. And yeah, man, do you think Southgate is necessarily wrong? What should England's first choice midfield trio be? Just let me know all your thoughts. Smash the like button, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and check out the other videos. One love for tuning in. Out, folks. As usual, your support is appreciated. One love. Always just that active red man defending. I think it's like